to go ahead and get started here. It's a little strange having all of you up there and us down here. Yeah, hello! Anyways, we're really thankful for all of you being here, but especially for our honored guests tonight. I was talking a little bit earlier and just saying that this moment is something that has been kept alive in Westmont tradition, in Westmont history. Every year, the Tom Byron Classic is held, and at least briefly, on the front page of the program, we talk about this moment, right, and what happened, and how the Tom Byron Classic came to be. And so it's a moment that's been kept alive, but I think tonight, the goal is to get a little bit more detail from those who were there, from the participants in that way. And I might even call on a couple of people that are sitting up there as well. So we'll do that. Just in terms of mechanics a little bit, I do have a wireless mic. So it's going to be important because we are recording this and we want everyone to be able to hear that you use this when you're talking, okay? And so I'll pass that around. So just talking about that moment, there's been 82 years of Westmont basketball. And to pick one moment as what I think is the most iconic, it is probably the moment that we're here to celebrate that happened 51 years ago to the day. And before we get to the game, however, I want to begin by asking about Coach Byron. Okay? And I want to ask any of you can answer this, but I'm going to start with Charles, okay? And I want to ask, what did Tom Byron mean to you, and what lasting impact did he have on your life?
I need to speak into them.
You do. I'm going to bring it to you. You can just pass it back and forth.
I can keep my seat in.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. We wanted to get up.
Well, you know, Coach Byron, I was here my junior year, and he wasn't coaching then, I don't think, was he? No.
It's Coach Larson.
Coach Larson. And so my senior year, you know, he came in, and what I remember about him is he was an honest man, and what I mean by that is that he didn't pull any punches. You know, he let you know where you stood, and I remember that one game in Pasadena. I think we won the game, but he said, you know, Charles, you really did good, and if we were given a game ball, we'd give it to you. And I said, no, I'll give it to Big Fred. I don't need it.
You would what?
But that's what I remember about Coach, and you know, it was tough for us to play that game because he had just passed away. We all came together, and I won't say a whole lot about that right now, but that's what I remember about it.
Anyone else? What do you remember about him? How did he impact
You
you?
guys want to go?
I think we were talking about this earlier at the house with Annie and Tom, of just the fact of, here's this man that's dying of cancer, and we were at the hospital, and we all got pulled in individually to have time with him. And, you know, for us at our ages here, really haven't been in that kind of a situation before, and to be there in that moment, knowing that this was happening, you know, and we're young, thinking we got this whole life before us and everything, and to have that individual time with him as far as the memory, it was just his values, his beliefs, and just, you know, sharing that, and how special that was that he, you know, in the midst of his, you know, getting ready to die and face, you know, the end of his life and be with the Lord, that he was concerned about all of us and giving, and that was just really special for me.
You know, there's, my junior year was the year that Coach Byron did not coach. And that was a very important year in my life. It's the year that God got a hold of me. And I had a moment with Coach. I got into some trouble. I threw a firecracker in the dorm. it burned some carpet. And Coach Byron was the dean of students, so he called me in. And so he did his deal. He says, I'm gonna have to make you pay for that. I don't think he ever did, though. But then he said, but I've heard something about you. I heard something happened in your life. And I shared with him that God had got a hold of my life that year. And that was the time he also shared with me. He says, I want you to know I'm coming back next year. I'm going to coach again. He says, I think God has healed me. And I think that was the first I had heard of that. And that was the beginning of that tumultuous first year. Next year, the year that we started off, we won our first 10 games. We were just a powerhouse. And then we played down in San Fernando. And that's the night that Coach couldn't go out with us on the floor. He stayed behind in the locker room and because he was in so much pain. And then he came out at the game, but we lost that game. I think we lost the next 3 or 4 in a row, didn't we?
Yep. Something like that.
And so I think we were on the losing streak when Hawaii came, if I'm not mistaken.
No, we weren't in a losing streak when Hawaii came. Oh, yeah, excuse me, I'm sorry, you're right, we
Yeah.
were. We after Tom died, we went into a downward spiral.
So, but anyway, Coach Byron was a man of integrity. He was a man who spoke his heart, his mind. He didn't hold back. He was a caring man. He was a man who really cared about us as players, as individuals. He was a man who always, you could trust what he said. And I appreciate the opportunity having known him and played for him.
Anyone else want to take a shot at that one?
Thank you. Thank you. Coach Byron, Tom Byron, was a coach's coach to me. He stood about this tall. He had bow legs. He'll walk up to you. He had a crook. I tease everybody about the crooked finger. But he'll poke at you and he'll tell you what's on his mind. I remember when he got sick, the team went to visit him in the hospital, right? And we all had a few minutes with him. I can't remember exactly what we talked about, he and I, but I can feel the spirit, his spirit. And we talked about being more consistent. One day you're up, you look over there with throwing firecrackers, and the next thing you're doing, you're scoring 10 points. But you have to be consistent. And I said, you're right, Coach. That's when I got serious. And coming back to class, the whole school was in mourning, crying. And the University of Hawaii had put in the paper all those, what's this guy? The guy, I can't remember the guy's name anymore. But Nash. Okay. All right, Nick Nash was dogging me, saying he's going to clean my clock, he's going to do this and that, okay? I said, all right, I took it to heart. And I'm going to show up that night with Charlie Mills' help and Coach's help. The plan didn't work out the first half. We were down, and I can't remember what happened, but we changed our defense to go man to man. This gave me a chance to prove man to man what I was. I was gonna take over the middle of the floor. All things work for the good, for them who love the Lord.
Amen.
For them who are called. Everybody didn't have the same calling. The Lord was with me that night in a calling. Thank you, teammates. Thank you, Mr. Voley, for this night, opportunity to share with you guys this one event that turned my life around. I use this Tom Byron moment all the years I played, overseas, playing. You have to get up and be consistent. I teach my grandson, my brother, my nephew playing ball. You have to be consistent. Charlie and I went on tours together, right? One, and that jump shot he had was consistent. You can look at it, I can turn and watch his feet, I can turn and go the other way. I know he's going to score fast. But Dean Byron was a man that I respect and helped me get to this point where I am today. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the words of all three of you and four of you and what that means. Charlie, let me ask you a question. Send the mic back the other way there, Dave. Dave.
Charlie, you know Charlie.
Give it to Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie, let me ask you a question. When the team found out about this, okay, and knew that he had passed, what were the dynamics of the team? How did you guys come together? What did you talk about? How did you find a way to go into that game the next night?
It's a great question. I'm not sure I have a good answer. Obviously, we pulled together as a group, and we were talking about who Tom Byron was, and to me, he kind of epitomized a man of God. And I remember when I first attended Westmont my freshman year, somehow I got invited to a Bible study, and it was at his house with these other athletes. And I wasn't privileged to go to other studies. I guess they didn't like me. They must have booted me out. But I saw then who he was, and I think that stayed with me. So, you know, when I look back at that time, I think we all had the resolve that we wanted to do our best, knowing who he was and what he had done for us. And that's what happened that night. So I'm grateful that I got to be a part of it. I wasn't a big part of it. I scored 2 points.
You won by one, so you were a big part of it.
I was an integral part of that win. And I was grateful for that. But it was even more grateful for the way I saw the team come together that night. And it was a wonderful thing to witness.
Ron, I'm going to ask you a question. So all of a sudden, you're chosen to step into the role as acting head coach, and you're now dealing with a team who has just lost someone that they came to play for, and you're being asked to lead these young men into a basketball game against one of the powerhouses in the nation. What was going on in your mind? How did you go about trying to navigate that and be a leader in that situation?
Well, 51 years ago, I can't tell you what was going through my mind. I'm sure I was thinking about something, Ron, that I could not tell you what it is today. You know, I'm being honest as I can. I know that David and I talked a lot about, you know, how we play these guys, and you know, we decided that we couldn't play them any other way than to play them zone. They would just, well, I don't know if the right word is kill or not, but they would just beat us, you know, if we played them anything but zone. So we did that, and you know, it's already been said, you know, we fell behind by 16, closed it up by 11 at half, and after at halftime, the guys went into the room, and David and I are talking, and so we both agreed. I don't know if it was probably your idea, or I don't know whose idea, but we both agreed, hey, if we keep playing these guys the way we're playing them with a zone, we're gonna get beat by 20. I mean, you know, so we said, hey, we ain't got anything to lose. Let's go at them, hard nosed, man to man, play them tough, you know. And I think we had, you know, it's a testimony to the players that these guys were. And one of the guys who's not here tonight, you know, I think was really key, and that was Andrew Hill. I wish he would have been here tonight. If Andrew Hill was a really good defensive ball player. I mean, he could play defense. Now he might have shaded the rules occasionally. You know, but he was a really good player. Give you an idea, when we went back to the Nationals with this team, they were, I don't know if you've heard of the name Slick Watts or not. You know, he played in the NBA for a number of years. And the night before, he had got, how many points did he have? David, he had probably 25, 26.
Between 25 and 30.
Yeah, 25, 30 the night before, and we were supposed to play. He was splashed all over the Kansas City newspaper, and Andrew held him to 7 points. 7 points. The guy didn't know what it hit him, literally. But that's, you know, he's key. But I think the team rose to the occasion. Whether they wanted to win it for Tom, I don't know. I mean, that was probably a big key. We all know basketball is a tremendously emotional game, and you know but I tell you, the guys wanted to come out and play with these guys, and we just, you know, we were hard nosed the second half, got up by 9 and held on. Good thing they didn't have the 3-point shot. One of those guys probably would have hit one. But let me correct something. Tim was talking earlier, and my mind wasn't working properly. When the last game Tom coached was at Northridge, you know, we had started the season 10 zip, and we went down and played Northridge, and Tom was in a lot of pain. I mean, he was in a lot of pain, and at halftime, he called me back and said, Ron, I don't know if I'm gonna make it out there, and he said, I'm gonna lay down here for a while, and he laid up on the table, and then he did come back out. But you know, it was after that game where he went into the hospital, and we went into the tailspin. Then that's when we went into the tailspin, and we lost like I think 4 out of the next 5 games, something like that. We lost, and then of course we played the University of Hawaii. But you know, Tom called me and hired me to come back to Westmont. You know, and you think about Providence and how God works in your life, but I just want to talk to you about just a minute. You know, guys have been talking about what they think about Tom Byron. I think the best thing I can, I could talk about Tom Byron. I worked with him. I worked with him intimately in student development, and I went, I spent a lot of time in meetings with him, one-on-one, and group sessions, whatever. The greatest thing I can say about Tom Byron is that he loved his players. He wanted those guys, every one of you guys. He wanted you to grow, he wanted you to know the Lord and come to know the Lord. And that was to me, I think, his greatest character. Now like I say, I could talk a long time about him. I love the guy.
Well, that says a lot about Tom Byron. I appreciate that thought right there. All right, so I want to get to the game. So you're going to walk into Murchison Gymnasium, which I understand was packed. And there was a lot of raw emotion, because this wasn't just something that happened to a basketball team. This is something that happened to the Westmont community, right? The entire campus. So when you walk in that gym with that kind of atmosphere, what was that like?
We turn to me.
Anyone?
Here.
Thanks, Coach. Yep. Well, for myself, and, obviously I talked to some of the guys before the game. We weren't intimidated. Okay? And I shared this with some of the guys that, myself, Big Fred, Andrew, and some other guys were recruited Division I, but we decided to come here. In Hawaii, I don't think they respected us, you see. And so we had that going for us. Even though we got behind, they didn't know what hit them the second half. And that's where we got them at. So, but it was a great atmosphere.
So what was it like? You guys come back, you're down by 11. Second half, you start coming back. What was that like in the gym?
Oh, it was electrifying. It was, the shots were falling. I was even passing the ball to this big guy. One time. But,
Were you the one who passed it to him for the last shot?
no,
Who was it? Who was it?
Doug Franklin.
Doug Franklin.
Who was it?
Doug Franklin.
Oh, Franklin passed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's what I remember about that moment. And, my wife kids me. She said, "What are you gonna say? You can't remember what you did yesterday." Yeah, I know, but
It only gets worse.
Who else wants to say something nice?
Forgetting?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we gotta hear from Briganti. Let's hear from Briganti.
Well, that night was really special. And I think it's already been said, and Charles said it, we were not intimidated by that team. I mean, the paper had built up that team. I don't know, they were in the top 15 team in the country. They were this, they were that. Nash, the kid that was going to play against Freddie, was All-American, all this, all everything. And he was going to educate Freddie. And, we came in, first half, I think we were a little bit not quite sure of ourselves. Kind of played tentatively. As the first half started coming to a close, we made a little run. And we came in at halftime, Ron and I talked about, this zone, if we can stay in this zone, it's gonna be a long night for us. And I thought right in my heart, I said, we can play with these guys. We could play with them. And I think when we went in the room, Ron and I think Andrew Hill started off saying, hey, we can beat these guys. We can beat them. And all the teams, yeah, we can beat them. And so we decided we're just gonna play. We're gonna pick them up, and we're gonna go after them. And we did. We just came out and played the best basketball we had played in a while. And we did it. And we got it done. Freddie was the best player on the floor. They could not stop him. There was no answer for him. And he was causing so much trouble. They tried to double him, and that opened up some shots for other players. And the other players started knocking down a few shots. And, you know, off we went. But I think it's said before, this Charles and we were a confident team. We felt we could beat anybody. And we just got it done. And that's basketball. On a given night, anything can happen. And that night, I think the good Lord was with us. I think Tom Byron was with us. And we did it.
That's good. Go ahead and pass it that way. So 85-85, the Rainbow Warriors, is that what they were called then? Rainbow Warriors, or were they just the, yeah. They managed to recover a little bit after probably being a little shell-shocked, just coming down to the last final minutes. And now we're going to get to point number 89 and 90. So we already talked about that a little bit, all right? My understanding was there were some people in your way, Fred. Tell us what was going on in your head and how you managed to get that layup.
Thank you. Coach Mulder just brought it to my attention. Asked me earlier, who passed you that ball? I couldn't remember. I remember looking down in the rim. Those were the years we couldn't dunk. All right, and so if I could have dunked, I would have probably torn the whole basket. But Franklin, right? Yeah. And Andrew Hill was a cheerleader. Ooh, man, he was on that night. And we had Dave Brigani at halftime. I want to tell you about the penalty made up there. Fired us up. We were not recognized in the press like they were. University of Hawaii were highly recruited. They come over to the mainland and travel for 3 months and play all the big teams and stay in nice hotels, okay? And they were just dogging us. And I know these guys from summer leagues, right? Who can play with anybody? Right, Charles?
Yeah.
Right, Charles? I know these guys. And Brigani was on us that night. Man, I could have gone through cement that night, I'll tell you. But the Lord was with us. We had a spirit about us. It was a magical year for all of us. And we're so good to be back together 51 years ago. Thank you, Lord, for this moment.
Absolutely. That's great. So now I would like you guys to describe what happened when that final buzzer went off in that.
Oh,
Mayhem.
man.
Mayhem?
Well, you know, you've already, let me just describe the gym. I mean, we had a lot of basketball games at Westmont where that gym, you were standing in the corners, you know, of our, you know, like take our gym and then just pack the gym as tight as you can, and then have people in every corner. And that's how it was that night. But I kid you not, when that buzzer went off, I don't think it took more than 30 seconds. And everybody in that gym was on the floor. I mean, literally, I mean, it was like a mob, they just descended on the floor, wasn't it right? Yes. It was just mayhem. I mean, they just were so I don't know, thrilled to death, you know, what we had just accomplished, you know, what you guys had just accomplished. It's great. That's the way I saw that. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that, but.
It was just crazy. I mean, the whole game, you know, especially the second half, when the fans were going crazy, you know, we made a run, we were down 11 or so at half, we came back, and the fans already were they were just going nuts the whole second half. And Freddie made that last shot, it was just unbelievable. You had to be there. I mean, words cannot describe what took place the next few minutes after that shot. Unbelievable.
Let Boldy talk.
The word that comes to mind is jubilation.
Yeah, unbridled jubilation, yeah, just mayhem. The thought that went through my mind, I know, was that this, for me, and that 51 years later, is still true, was the pinnacle of any athletic experience that I was ever going to experience.
Yeah.
And I'm good friends with Randy Fund. He's been on championship NBA teams. I wouldn't have traded his championships for this night in a minute. This was the pinnacle of any of that kind of experience. You know, just the whole, everything of Coach Byron having, you know, just the emotions,
Yeah.
the unbridled emotions that happened at that point were just, as Coach Brigani said, you just can't put it into words.
You know, I have to admit, in terms of the game itself, the game action, I have absolutely no memory at all, except for one scene. I have vivid in my mind that last second where Freddie is going down the lane and he gets the ball, and I remember thinking, there's no way in the world he's gonna make it.
Such confidence.
And I can remember what I remember is just the brute force with which he took that ball and went to the rim. And I'm not sure if it's right, but I have an image of 3 guys hanging on him, and he just went to the rim and he scored. And then there was still a few seconds left, and then them telling us, don't foul, don't foul, don't foul. And then when the final buzzer, like you said, that in a few seconds, that floor was packed and you could not move. For at least 10 minutes, you could not move. Wherever you were just there because the press of the people around you. And I remember at some point them telling us, don't go down to the locker room. We want you to go over to Murchison 1 because we didn't want to go down there when they were still down there. And in Murchison 1, I remember just roaming around looking at one another like, what just happened?
That's great. That wasn't the only big win you had that year. I know you have a lot of big wins, but I think, Tim, you might have something to tell us about an Xavier win.
Me?
Xavier. Well, you know, speaking of Andrew, there was a moment, see, Xavier, we went in and watched Xavier play the day before. And their 3rd string substitute was 6'10". I mean, they were the most talented team I've ever seen personally on a basketball court. And to be honest, we were intimidated. And right before we went onto the floor, Coach Mulder said, we want to take this basket because we want to have the other, you know, at the end of the game, we want to be close. So we went out because we were the home team, we got to choose the basket, and we went out, and Xavier was already out, and they were at our basket. And I remember I was one of the first ones on the floor, me and a few others, and we went there, and we looked at one another and said, well, what do we do? And I remember being so intimidated, we just kind of like sheepishly said, well, I guess we got to go down to the other end of the floor. And all of a sudden, out from behind us come Andrew Hill. And Andrew Hill walked right onto the court, right into the midst of all of these guys, and he says, you guys get out of here, this is our basket. And they started arguing, and he just argued, it just was him and us behind it, you know, like watching our big brother, you know. And he fought, and they sheepishly went down to the other end of the court, and I remember thinking, we just won this game. And that was key. Andrew Hill helped us to turn that game around before it even started.
Amazing.
Let
Great
me have a
story.
mic for a second, let me do some,
Well, the mic's coming.
yeah.
Tom or Annie, can I have one of you come down here? I have a question for one of you. Either one.
Okay, while they're deciding, let me just clarify, you know, back in those days, it's not like it is today. I mean, the system that we have today is really a good one, you know. You go away from your bench the first half and you get that in the second half, which is where your bench is. And that's a good, whoever thought that up, I don't know why the idiots for how many decades never anybody thought of that, you know. But anyway, back in those days, it was a visiting team got to choose which direction they wanted to go first. So when Tim's describing that we want this basket, okay, you know, then the other team had to give, you know, way to that. Well, they didn't want to give. They wanted that basket to go in that direction, that half. And Andrew just nailed him to the wall and talked him out of it, you know. So, and another thing that comes up about the Xavier game was that I remember in the locker room, you know, or it was actually in the hotel room, we were talking, and somebody mentioned that these guys had scored like, I don't know, 100 and some odd points the day before. And so David and I talked it over and we decided, you know, we were gonna play these guys up on them. We weren't gonna play zone, you know, they just shoot us out of the gym, you know, these big guys. And so I remember saying to the team, we have to hold these guys under 70 points, okay? And Andrew spoke up and said, Coach, we have to hold them under 60 points. That's the kind of guy Andrew was. We won that game 72-59. We held them to 59 points. So it was a great game. Okay. You're both gonna talk now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. That's great.
Here.
So I'm gonna go back now.
Who's got the mic?
I'm going back to the Hawaii game now.
Okay.
And what I want to know from the two of you is, what did that night mean to you, both then and over the years?
I think a lot of it was just very surreal in the moment. You know, my memories of the game, actually, probably my most distinct memory of the game was the moment of silence before the game. The gym was absolutely packed. If I recall correctly, there were actually people sitting in front of the front row. So I'm sure we violated every fire code imaginable. And whoever was doing the PA asked for a moment of silence, and I thought, yeah, right. You're not gonna get this many people quiet, and the gym went silent. And that, for me, was one of the most remarkable things and the things that I remember. And then just being so moved and so proud, and kind of so loved, right? And which is how we have felt this weekend as well. It's just been a huge blessing to be around these men that we knew as kids. And so this is the first time we've been together with them as adults. So I guess it's just pride and love are the takeaways and all of that.
I was actually not at the game.
Ah, okay.
It was, I'd spent that whole day, I think, up in the gym just shooting baskets almost by myself. But what I would echo is the pride, the love, the respect for these guys, and seeing them again has just been phenomenal.
That's great. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for opening your hearts, and as well as your memory banks, and sharing with us everything that you have tonight. You've touched me, certainly, and I'm really thankful for that. And I am grateful for all of you coming and hearing these stories. So, was there a question up there?
No, there's a comment.
Okay.
Very quick. I was on the bench, just like Goldie was on the team bench. I was on the scorer's team, sitting next to Ralph Anderson. And some people have not touched this, but they had a guy in the stands for Hawaii dressed in a red fuchsia jumpsuit. And he was cursing the refs right now. And go, players here. So the refs come over and they say, Ron, you gotta go talk to Roka. You gotta get this guy out of the gym. So Ron goes over to Roka and said, you gotta get this guy out. He said, Roka said, I don't know him. And Ron said, well, we're ahead and you're gonna lose the game. So they got the guy out and he was booed with venom. He was cursing every single word that security guy was Joe the cop. And he fled.
Oh my goodness.
So
Joe the cop.
he walked out, but that guy, he turned, he had a camera, he fired everybody, but they got him out. It was just added, I think maybe that was the reason the tape ran out. All right.
Well, thank you all, and thank you to our, oh, yep,
I'd like to say one more thing.
pass that mic down there.
You know, one thing about this team, it doesn't, you know, we talk about the upset and how we were outclassed everything. This team, you guys, were the most talented team I've ever played on. We had a good team, so although it shocked the world, I think in our hearts, we knew from the beginning we had a shot at this, because we had a very quality team of ball players that year.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say one more thing, and my wife's looking at me saying, shut up. I wasn't intimidated at Xavier because I had this guy, Big Fred. I'm getting behind him, so I'm good. And Andrew before told us 50 points, not, what would you say, 60, 70, yeah. He came up to us and said 50, and we almost got it.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.